You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 9 of Teach Better Talk. I'm Ray Hewert, and as always, I am with the fabulous Jeff Gargis. We have so much in store for this episode, talking to one of my favorite educators. But before we get to that, Jeff, how are you doing?
Ray, I'm doing fantastic. Like you said, we're on episode 9, which is awesome. Can't believe we're already to 9. Seems like they're just flying by, which is really, really great. And like you said, one of your favorite educators, which oddly enough, he's one of my favorite educators as well, Mr. Tal Thompson. I'm gonna try to say all the things that this guy has going for him.
It's a long list.
It's a long list. So I mean, to say he's award-winning and nationally recognized is probably small time, but we'll say it. He was actually an America's Top Teacher finalist with Live with Kelly and Michael, which is like super awesome. You can see him. Find it on YouTube. You can see him on there with them and why he was on there. He was a 2016 South Carolina Citizen Education Teacher of the Year, and he is also a National Board Certified Teacher. One thing about Tal is that he's tall. He's 6'8", and believe it or not, he teaches 4th grade, which is like really cool to see him in his classroom with all his little 4th graders. Tal also does workshops, seminars, speaks all around the country. He's always looking for ways to share what he's doing and help teachers and districts and businesses and corporations, anyone, kind of take their game to the next level and inspire them and motivate classrooms or even workforces. It's really cool how he's been able to share what he's been doing. Tal, it's really, really awesome to have you on. Really, really appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with us and kind of hang out with us tonight. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling fantastic. We are 2 days away from kids coming back into the classroom, which means, just like all the other educators out there listening, which means the last couple of weeks have been really tough. You know, working a lot of hours trying to get your classroom and your school climate ready for the kiddos to show up. So I am definitely tired, but I'm also pumped for the moment that matters. It's when the kids start walking in and we can start doing that thing we call educating. I'm pumped for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I know Jeff gave you like a little introduction and how, all the things that you've done. But how do you describe yourself when someone says, "Hey Tal, what do you do?" What's your like typical go-to response?
Well, when they see me, first of all, the first question anyone asks me is, do you play basketball? And so my most common response is no, I'm a jockey or I'm a gymnast, just to mess with their head. But I think, when people find out I'm in education, and especially when I teach elementary, it kind of blows their mind because I am 6'8", and it's, seeing a male educator in elementary is kind of rare, but then seeing, Shrek as an educator is a whole different ballgame. So I think, what I hope people would see and what I like to describe myself as is someone who is extremely passionate about children and passionate about what they can do in this world, and that I feel like we drastically underestimate the amazing things that they can do. We've kind of held them back for too many years, and so I think what I like to do is say I believe in children. I believe they're capable of way more, and in my classroom we are all about PBL. We're project and problem and passion based learning. I love seeing kids do the things that matter most to them, which is, what we need to matter most for them is to develop that critical thinking mindset and tap into their creativity, because it's something that's definitely in the last 10, 15 years with, standardized testing and the demands for test-driven data. We've kind of lost that ability to create, not lost it, but it's kind of taken a back seat, the critical thinkers in the world. And so through PBL and then my huge push into the maker movement, I like to put a, kind of a hub. I call my classroom the innovation hub, where it's just a place where they are, creating a mindset that they can do big things in this world. So I don't really like the phrase teacher, because that kind of, to me, it just got an old school, I stand in front of the class and I teach. I like to, there's a person that I really respect. His name is Hip Hughes. He's on YouTube as Hip Hughes, and he calls teachers FOLE, Facilitators of Learning Experiences. And I
Right.
just think that's super powerful. And that's kind of what I want to do for kids.
Love that. I love your focus on the maker and the that critical thinking and that creativity side. I was actually I'll need to find it. I'll link it in the show episodes. But I was reading a book that referenced several studies, a series of studies that actually found that they were testing kids' creativity throughout their school, and actually that in the traditional model that the students they became uh, the majority of them became less and less and less and less creative as they went through the school system because it was a research that was basically saying like the old model of teaching actually we actually educate the creativeness out of people. So I love your focus on spending that and focus on things because I think that's such an important thing, especially in today's world and where we're moving. Really, really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's something that you're right. I think it's interesting you say it that way. We teach it out of them, and that scares me and it frightens me, and it makes me sad. Someone who has a fifth grader and a 4 year old, I don't want that because when you watch kindergartners, man, they are amazing. Like they are the most creative little boogers in the world. And then something, then you go see them in 10th and 11th grade, those same kids, and throughout our whole process, we have kind of sadly we ripped that away from them because we've taken all their thinking away from them by giving them every step they need to do in life. And that's what Maker and PBL is so powerful because they have to be the not just problem solvers, they have to find problems and then create the solutions.
And when you say that about having the young kids, we had our open house today with for my son for his first grade, and he's in like this moment or this phase where he's in the what if I like
Hmm.
phase. Like that's his question. What if I did this and that? What if this happened? And there are some of them are just off the wall, but I love it because I'm like, you're being so creative. I can't even keep up with you right now. And I'm the same way as you. Like we talked about this a lot with our Teach Better team. How like big passion for me and why we do everything that we do is because I fear just like you. I fear my kid going through that old school. I want them to go through and be creative and have these challenges and be critical thinkers and stuff like that. So I really love that you're on the direction you're going. I think it's the direction everything needs to go. So, with one thing I want to touch on is with all of the accolades that we read off and the things you've done and the recognition you've gotten and being on TV and going around the country and training with teachers and everything, all this different stuff. I think a lot of people could probably look at you and think, "Oh, well, there's a guy who's had it all figured out. He's been rocking this thing. He's just an awesome teacher or facilitator of learning experiences, and he's probably never failed, right?" So I really want to take I love failure. I talk about it all the time. I want you to share, if you can, if you can share with us. Tell us about the time that you failed, and if you can kind of take us there with you, and tell us like how you overcame that, and also what you learned from it, what came out of that failure.
Well, I think part of the reason that I've been successful is I'm very much a risk taker, and I don't. I think a lot of there's a lot of amazing teachers out there that see the big things that happen in our industry, the revolutionary ideas when PBL first started becoming the buzzword, or when Maker's the buzzword, or whatever it was. A lot of teachers see that and they're like, "All right, let's do this. How can we make this happen?" And you kind of jump off a cliff and see what will happen. And then a lot of teachers, it terrifies them because one of the I guess one of the stereotypes of teachers is like we are terrified of change. I've always been someone who has seen those things and thought to myself, these are absolutely what's best for kids. I'm all in. Let's do it. And with that, you kind of jump off the cliff without a parachute, and that's kind of the nature. And it's to me that doesn't. It used to scare me. It used to scare me a lot. I'm not going to act like I've always been this way. It used to scare me a lot to jump into a new thing because what if things did go wrong and what if things did fail? But project-based learning, it's all about failure. That's kind of the goal of what we're doing. So just about every project that I've started, I've had this huge idea and I've tried to filter it into how it'll work with kids and leave it as open-minded as possible and open-ended as possible for kids to be able to create all the solutions. And with that, you're always learning, especially with new class, you're learning, wow, I may have left that too open-ended, and now you're the drive and the passion that was in the classroom when you started is kind of gone because they're overwhelmed with the obstacles. Where you want them to see obstacles, but you don't want them to see 3,000 obstacles in front of them. So I think what's so powerful about it is last year I had a unit that I was starting that I was really really excited about, and we wanted to build. I was teaching fifth grade last year, and we were doing this project where we wanted to design some type of furniture for the hallway because we had 4 fifth grade classrooms that transferred between each other all day long, but it's an elementary school. So middle school does that. Well, they have lockers and they have systems and procedures in place that make that work. Well, it's an elementary school, so it's sometimes elementary schools will change one classroom to another, but to have all four classes in a narrow hallway, trying to figure out how that's going to work with computers that are dying throughout the day and with all kinds of random things. Our problem was our driving question for that solution for that problem was, how do we design furniture in the hallway that can hold the coats and hold our backpacks without it being the traditional locker, because we couldn't dig into a wall and we didn't want to just purchase lockers. So we went through the whole process of the kids designing it. They were making 3D prototypes of their designs. We had a Shark Tank thing set up where we brought some judges in, where they'd present to the judges their prototypes and how it was going to be built. Set up these mentors from colleges. These architects are going to help them kind of go through the process. And beforehand, I had it set up where it was going to be approved through building services and through the fire marshal. And then we got about halfway through this whole project, and our ability to do the project fell through. The building services and the fire marshal started to panic as they heard they gave us permission, but then they started to see what we were making and what our plans were, and they're like, well, we need to measure this again. They come in and do some measurements, and then collectively they just thought, you know what, this just isn't going to work. What can we do to fix this? And to me, that was the biggest failure for me, because now I had to go back and tell these kids, wow, we have this really big plan and you guys have been working your rear ends off and failing over and over, but then learning from those failures and coming up with new concepts to make it work. And having to go back in that room and tell the kids that we're not going to build the actual furniture was a nightmare. So for the kids, coming together and telling them that, it was tough, but what it ended up doing is like, all right, so we had a disappointment in our life. And this is a big one for the kids because they were pumped. What can we do? And I let them design an outcome of what we could do to make this still be something that was useful for them. And they wanted to keep their plans, and they wanted to present to each other their projects, and they wanted to, they knew they were not going to be able to build it. But it was one of those moments where they could see that this is a huge disappointment, and through empathy and compassion and collaborating with each other, they came up with a different way for us to kind of wrap that project up and move on to something else, because I still wanted them making, but it was tough, but it came together, and I was really proud of them for what they were able to, because it's fifth graders, they could have flipped a table and went crazy, but they decided, all right, we can make this work, and we'll just do something different. And they made smaller prototypes out of cardboard, and they made it so that it would be something that hopefully down the road the goal was for them, I could convince another grade level down the road to do this, and the plans would already be in place. And so it was a pretty powerful moment, even though it was a disappointment.
Yeah, what a powerful just life lesson of dealing with forces that are outside of your control and making the best of it, moving on and doing the prototypes and stuff. That's really cool.
Absolutely, yes.
So now let's flip that around. Let's talk about a success you've had, whether big or small, that you're just super proud of and you'd like to share. Like, tell us what happened, why it was a success, and then what did you take away from that?
I think it comes back to Maker for me. I am so proud of what Maker has done for my classroom and for my kiddos. And it started off with, me just hearing it. Like, some people who are listening to this podcast may not know what the Maker movement or what, Maker Space or Maker Ed really is. And it's amazing how often I'll go and speak at a workshop or a clinic, and I'll talk to people and I'll say Maker, and it's kind of like, when you're talking to a third grader and you say Europe, and they're like, what is he saying? I'm not going to raise my hand. I'm not really sure what Europe is. And so when I explain to them what Maker is, and I do a lot of like just hands-on Maker with the people that are in the workshop so they can kind of experience it themselves. That was me like 4 or 5 years ago when I first heard about it. And I thought, the first time I'm going to use it is for the Industrial Revolution. I was teaching that for a fifth grade history unit, and it was amazing. And I was just watching these kids make and being creative, and I gave them some scenarios of things that they needed to overcome, and through the invention process. And from there it just grew and grew. But for me, it was all about, how do I implement content? How do I get content into Maker? How do I get them, with their creativity and critical thinking skills being enhanced, and really that whole collaboration aspect, which is so powerful in Maker. But what happened on accident was this empathy and character building that took place, and just watching through the process of, I know that you guys talk a lot about the value of failure and the value of how important that is in kids' lives. Well, Maker is all about failure. I mean, so is project-based learning, and having them realize that this is part of what makes things great. I always tell the kids when we get into big projects and we're about to do something, that I know is going to have failure, I challenge them to go find a biography of a person who where it's like a real short biography, 2 or 3 pages, where it says, and everything just worked out and they had a great life. No, they always went through some type of failure, some type of obstacle that developed that character. And so what Maker does is, you fail, they always have this big plan, and there's so much planning that goes into Maker, and then they start working, and it's almost immediately. There's very, very rarely in the Maker experience does someone start building in a group, and all of this, and as they're looking at their plan, saying this is going really well. It's almost immediate failure, because writing something on paper and then start trying to build it doesn't always work. And so seeing them learn to be sympathetic of each other, because there's always someone who had that big idea in the group, and so you see the empathy coming through, the compassion, the reorganizing of thoughts, the like have to build each other up because the disappointments are so big, but then at the same time, how do they manage successes so that they're not, gloating in front of the rest of the peers who are still in that struggle process, and all these different character components. The compassion is huge, and their ability to develop communication skills through Maker. So if I guess I have to wrap it up, what I've kind of on accident realized how powerful Maker is in so many different aspects other than content, and it's just been super powerful to watch.
Tal, you know that we've talked numerous times outside of just this little recording, and I just love your passion for Maker, PBL, all these hands-on learning experiences, because while it does address failure, this type of education, it teaches the whole student, right? You're doing so much more than content. You're practicing life skills that are really enhancing then our students walking away not only smarter academically, but so much more successful for everything else that's coming in their future. And especially, I've seen your Instagram's full of workshops you've done. You've really tried to embed this into everything you do with your students, with your teachers that you get to work with. I just love that. So I have to say, that's what gets me excited, right? I'm so excited about that movement, not only that you've been able to push it, but all the people that are in that passion space for really giving students hands-on learning opportunities in their classroom day in, day out. But if you couldn't pick that, let's just pretend that wasn't an option. What else are you excited about in education?
Well, I think the biggest thing, and I've seen it in me, like I'm a big fan. I'm not a believer in memes. I'm a fan of memes. Like the educational memes that come out that are funny, that's one thing. But the ones that come out that really kind of hitch in the chest is how powerful they are. And there's one that went around about 4 or 5 months ago, and I see it spiral every once in a while, and it's about coding. And I've kind of fallen in love with the aspect of getting coding into my kiddos' hands, because I think it's super powerful. And one of the memes said something along the line of, we don't need a generation of coders. We need a generation of kids who can see coding as a tool towards success. I think that whole mindset that I just want to, I don't necessarily, I know that there's a lot of coding jobs out there, and I know there's a lot of opportunities for coding out there, but I don't want to be one of those teachers that pushes someone into a job just because they know there's going to be a job there. I want my kids to do what they believe is going to fill their heart, and they're going to be passionate about, and they're going to make differences in the world. So coding is one of those things that can do both. Like if you really enjoy this, you can do big things in the world because there's opportunities out there. But if you don't really enjoy it, it's still a tool that can be used in a lot of other professions that can be useful for you. So coding is something that I've just recently tried to wrap my hand around. I volunteered to work at a camp here in our school district because I'm very lucky to work in a school district that's very into the maker movement, obviously, but also into getting coding in kids' hands. And we have 3D printers in every school that we have traveling or traveling woods labs that go to each school. Whenever we need something, it's there. They will invest in whatever technology we need to get in kids' hands. And so I'm getting fired up about using coding in as many ways as possible. I'm trying to facilitate that need for girls in technology because there's so many opportunities out there for girls in this field. So I'm going to start a club this year for girls to get more opportunities with tech, because for whatever reason around the 4th, 5th, 6th grade time frame, there's a lot of girls who fall out of love with math and out of love of science. And being someone who's in elementary level, those girls are very talented in those fields, and I want to just keep getting that stuff in their hands so they can continue to build that passion around it. So I'm getting into how coding can be beneficial, but also showing kids, rather than here's an Ozobot that you can just play with, and here's a Sphero that you can just play with, and here's all these different tools. I want to create authentic experiences for them so they can see that, yeah, this is cool, but it's also, wow, look what I can do with this tool in my hand if I decide to pursue this avenue. So I'm just excited, and I'm by no means an expert in any of this, but I have people in my district that are passionate about it, that all I got to do is get on the phone and call, and they'll 5 or 6 of them will show up in my room the next day saying, all right, what do you want to know? How can we implement this into your classroom? And so that's what I'm excited about right now, is how can I get coding as a a regular aspect in my classroom.
Gosh, you'll have to really share with us about that as you continue your journey, because I feel like that would be something I need to focus on too. So I need to, keep you picking your brain about all
Yeah,
that.
that's one I'm really excited to hear how that goes. Tal, that's something that I have just a little bit of a background in, and I see a lot of the different uh, educational tools that are connected to coding. I've always thought the same thing. The way that you're approaching is, well, that's really cool, and they can do neat little stuff, but we need to be showing them how they can actually take that and impact the world and take it into society, and how they're actually going to be able to use that when they're older and when they need to contribute and stuff. So I really like that. I'd love to hear. I'm gonna be following closely, seeing how you're utilizing that in your classroom. That's really cool.
Well, that's good. Come along for the ride, because it's going to be
Yes.
bumpy early. I promise you that, but we'll figure it out.
Well, guys, you're talking about like everything I'm passionate about, taking content, relating it to the real world. Like this is my kind of conversation. I have to say though, you said something earlier about how you could reach out to colleagues whenever you needed it. There was so much support. I think that's so important as schools continue to make any sort of transition and new initiatives, taking on new tasks, is trying to support either new teachers, old teachers. It doesn't matter what kind of teacher you are, but as we make this transition, it's so important. I really also though have to think about those new teachers. I'm working with a new teacher right now on my team, and there's just so many questions. What's one piece of advice that you would give a new teacher, whether it be like their first time in a job, their first time teaching ever, or maybe even up until like their third year teaching? What's kind of the biggest element of advice that you feel like they need to take hold of and run with?
I think that, I mean, this is something I'm very passionate about as well. I don't know what the most recent statistic is, but I remember reading several years ago that 50% of our new teachers were leaving within 5 years.
Yeah.
And and the way that I know that that statistic is pretty true is, I've been teaching. I think this is my 18th or 19th year, and I remember in the first 5 years of teaching, probably going to 15 to 20 retirement parties. I think I've been to 4 retirement parties in the last 5 years. Teachers just don't make it to retirement because of the demands on the job, or whatever that reason would be. And sometimes I know very well, I mean, all of us who are on this phone call right now, all of us know that there are moments in our career where I'm like, I would like to walk out the door right now. This is just very frustrating. But I'm very passionate about trying to make sure that those first 5 years of our new teachers is powerful for them, that they're getting the experiences they want, but at the same time, how can I be there as a safety net for them, because it is frustrating early on. So I think what I've seen, working with student teachers and with all of our new teachers that we have, that if I could tell them to try to figure out balance in 2 different ways, really. Obviously, the first balance is some teachers come in and they don't realize how hard you have to work at educating early on, so they don't put enough emphasis into the job early on, and their balance is, 2:45 comes around, the bell rings, they leave, and they'll figure it out the next morning, and they realize that that can really add up if you don't stay ahead of the game a little bit. But on the other side, there are some teachers that show up, and these new teachers I see that they're in the school at 7:30, 8 o'clock Monday through Friday in the evening, and I'm like, you guys got to go home at some point. I know how passionate you are. I love your passion, but you still have to go home and see some friends, see your family, get some sleep, and so that balance. I think anyone who talks to new teachers really stresses that balance. But the other part of the balance that I really like to talk to them about is, we kind of get, I don't want to pigeonhole new teachers into 2 categories, but you got the teacher that comes out that is gung ho, fired about education, is coming into, to change the whole face of education, and they're going to heal every wound that we have, and they're not open to listening. Or you got the ones who come in who don't, and they still have the same skill set, but they don't necessarily have the confidence to speak up. So anytime, as soon as that negative one teacher comes into their room and starts telling them how teaching is going to be, they don't stand up for themselves. So I would like to challenge them to say, this is the same thing I would say to some older teachers too. I get frustrated with older teachers when they don't listen to our new teachers, but because, man, they are coming to us with some skill sets that we can't even imagine. Some of them are coming so more prepared for education than ever before, but we just don't listen to them because they're new. But for the new teachers, I would say listen as often as you can, but give as much as you feel comfortable, because we need to learn from you as well. And if we could do a better job of letting them feel how valuable they are, then maybe they'd feel more part of this community and more part of this profession, and see their role as being that authentic and powerful. If we could give them that ownership earlier, instead of saying, we'll start listening to you when you're 6 years in, because then you know what you're talking about. We have to start doing a better job of nurturing and preparing them for what's coming by listening. And then they have good ideas. We have to listen to them and take some of those ideas and make them work in our own way. So So balance in so many different ways. Yeah.
I love it. All right. Okay. Here we go, Mr. 2016 Teacher of the Year. We're going to put you to a real challenge here. You ready?
Yes, I
We're going
am.
to do 6 questions. You got 15 seconds or less to answer each. Are you up for it?
I'm up for it. Let's see it.
I think he's going to do awesome. Usually I'm nervous, but I think he's got this cold.
You think he's got it? All right, let's
I
see.
do. He
Here we
actually
go.
practiced these all night.
What is one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
Falling in love with Flipgrid. It's building kids' confidence to have more voice in the classroom, and it's just powerful.
What's one book you're reading right now?
Just started it by Kim Beard, and it's called Talk to Me. The challenges of figuring out communication between all different levels of communication. It's really powerful.
Who do we all need to follow on Twitter today?
My superintendent that just retired last year, the most amazing person on the planet, Pam Moran, George Kuros, the author of Innovator's Mindset, and Maker Ed.
And what is the best YouTube channel for educators?
Well, I talked about him already. Hip Hughes. He's a social studies guy, but and I don't teach social studies this year, but I have in the past. He does a lot. He's into flip teaching, so he has tons of videos that are useful for teachers that want to get content in kids' hands.
What is one daily, weekly, or monthly routine that every teacher should get into?
Reflect more often. Don't wait till the end of the year. I journal every morning when I wake up, and I reflect about things that happened the day before, and then I celebrate good things that are happening so you can stay positive and grow.
Best piece of advice you've ever received?
One of my former teachers said this to me all the time, and he wanted me to really buy into it, that failure is a must, and I need to embrace it.
I love it. You did an awesome job right there, man. But I'm going to bring you back to one. You're journaling every morning. What do you use? What's your tool for journaling?
I just have a notebook. I mean, it's just a moleskin notebook that I use, and I, have a couple things that I want to write about professionally and personally. But there's a part on there every day that I reflect on. I try to come up with 3 things I could have done better, and then I celebrate one thing that went really well. And the celebrations, I want them to be more about the connections I made. Every once in a while, I'll do a big wow moment in the classroom, so clearly we'll celebrate that. But I want to know something that got to one of those kiddos that I always worry about that's slipping through the cracks. What connection did I make that's going to change a kid's life the day before?
So I love that piece. Because something that changed that has really had an impact on me is I don't remember when it was. It was years ago. I downloaded an app called the 5-Minute Journal, and it's similar thing. So it does a prompt to you in the morning and then at night. And in the morning, it asks you, what are you grateful for? And it gives you 3 slots for 3 things that you were grateful for. And then it asks you what would make today awesome. So you kind of lay out like what you're looking forward to, what you're looking to do. In the evening, it asks you what amazing things happened today. So that's that reflection on what just went. And then it asks you what would have made today even better. And so it's that reflection on what am I grateful for in the morning? What am I going to do today? And then reflection at night of what happened today that was awesome and what could I have gotten to? What did I miss? Whatever. And a big piece of that also in the morning, it asks for your daily affirmations, which I love affirmations.
Oh, yeah.
So I really love that. So I love to touch that, but that's just another little. I always like to throw out a thing for the 5-Minute Journal. I don't remember who it is that makes it or whatever. I think it costs a couple bucks on iTunes, but or in the App Store. But it's a great app for doing that daily journaling like that. So awesome, nice work on those. Nailed it.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
I have one final question here, guys. Really, it has to do, Tal, with how people can connect with you. You are so active on social media and you push out so many interesting videos, so much content. And I just know that there are so many things that you mentioned today that people want to follow up with or continue asking questions about. So what is your ways that for people to reach out?
Well, pretty much anything comes back to that phrase, Tal Tal. So my website is taltal.com. And if you're wondering, those of you that are listening, Tal is T-A-L. So it's tall without one of the L's. So taltal.com, that's my website. Tal Tal is my Facebook. My YouTube channel is Tal Tal. And then like Twitter and Instagram are 2 of the things I'm most active on. Those are Tal Tal Teaches. So have fun with those T's. But you can track me down by looking for Tal Tal.
Yeah, you always got good Twitter posts, but I do love your Instagram stories. Those are always worthwhile.
So thank you. I have fun doing it. I'm not an expert like a lot of people. Ray's a rock star on Twitter or on Instagram right now. I'm learning.
Ray's a rock star in a whole lot of things, isn't she?
Oh, yes, she is. She's all over the place.
Is.
I don't know that she sleeps. She needs to get a week's worth of sleep in every once in a while.
So you guys know you can always find all the links and to resources and everything that we've touched on in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as those really important links for connecting with Tal. So make sure you head over to teachbetter.com for all of that information. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes that we have coming up. And if you can give us a rating and a review, we'd really, truly appreciate that. So Tal, thank you so much for taking some time and hanging with us today. We truly, truly appreciate your insights, your stories, and just spending some time and laughing with us a little bit today, man.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate it. And I love what you guys are doing. Anything that's getting a positive message out there about education, but also educating educators. Like, we all need to continue to grow. So keep up the awesome work. I'm pumped about what you guys do.
Love it. And until next time, everybody, let's get out there and let's teach better.